All right, good morning, everyone present and to the viewing public. It is now 10 a.m. with seven members present. We hereby establish a quorum to conduct today's meeting. For the members joining us this morning, to my left, we have our Vice Chair, Representative Kamatsu. And to his left, we have Representative Ed Probst. To his left, we have Representative BJ Atto. To his left, we have Representative Marissa Flores. To her left, we have Representative Diego Kamatsu. And to his left, we have Manny Castro. And yeah, that's it, right? Okay. So, with that being said, we are ready to conduct today's committee meeting. Can I please get a motion to adopt today's agenda? Motion has been offered and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion carried. Today's agenda is hereby adopted. The next item on the agenda, we have a public comment. Does anyone in the gallery wish to give their public comment on any item on today's agenda? If so, please state your name and agency you represent for the record. We have none. So moving along for the order of business, we have nothing under old business. Without further ado, under new business, we have line item A, House Bill 2392, to suspend the energy metering in the cinema and for other purpose. I now open the floor for discussion. I recognize Representative Marissa Flores.
Thank you, Chairman. I know that during the last session there was, you put this out on the floor, and of course it's in your committee now, pending comments. But for the viewing public, I've also received some calls in regard to the proposed bill. Um, while we have a division of those who support it, there's also opposition. If you could please take us down through a timeline of events through history, telling us and informing the general public in layman's terms, why this bill is needed. So how this bill came about, its current state, and why you're proposing now to suspend net metering so that those people, that obviously support it can defend it, and then those people that oppose it can understand. Because as of now, this bill also talks about those people that already had the investment through the solar system with CUC. So just break it down, at least for me, but for the general public, which is important because there's no one here in the chamber to make public comments. So if you can, uh, Chairman, respectfully, can you just take us down through this history of how it began, where we're at now, and why we're proposing, or you're proposing, and those in the 23rd legislature who supported that, why is it now being offered to be suspended? Thank you. I yield.
Okay. That there is a law, under Title 4 Economic Resource Division 8 under Utilities, subsection 8532, energy metering to be provided to eligible customers. Now, that was true then, because of the way the utility system is set up. It's to give incentives to those that can afford to uh, purchase the renewable energy system, so that it will reduce their utility bill, from the main grid. Um, because the price back then was expensive, the systems nowadays are affordable, right? And the problem that we have nowadays with the net energy metering and the credit is that those that do not have the financial resource to invest back then, now they have the ability to do so. So with the price of renewable energy systems being cheaper than it was, I mean, even last year, it's a lot cheaper now today compared to the way it was 5 years ago. You know, it a lot of states, and Hawaii in particular, are getting rid of net metering because of the imbalance of the maintenance and operation costs to operate and maintain the grid. Now, there's a letter that I did receive from one of our business sector from MRE that quoted where they quoted the LBNL report of 2016, where it says, I quote, "The last evidence that the utility cost shift argument is self-serving and it's a myth." Well, that's not true, because the when you go through the NLB report that the MRA is talking about, can we bring that up? Right, right. On this web page from Ellen, what's that? From the LBNL, and that is the Berkeley lab. There's nothing in here that justified the argument of Micronesian renewable. If you go to the other web page, well, no, go down, go down. Okay, the second to the last statement, go down, right there. Okay, now the last sentence, highlight that last sentence. Yeah, that one right there. Okay, where it says the study is careful to describe these as impacts rather than benefits, as they represent resource transfer from some stakeholders to others rather than net social benefit on state, national, or global scale. What that means is that it actually goes against, the net metering, where it's supposed to help everybody, defray the cost of the operations and the maintenance and the repair of the grid. Um, Before I go any further, can I just, can we just go to recess real quick? All right. Okay, recess. All right. We're back from recess, and I would like to recognize Representative Manny Castro.
Thank you, Chair. May I request that or I make a motion that we go into committee as a whole?
Second.
So we've been requested to go to a committee as a whole, and it's been seconded. So, so any discussion on the motion? Ready? Okay. I recognize. All in favor say aye. All in favor say nay. Or all opposed say nay. Motion carries. Right. We would like to recognize the acting CUC director, Ms. Betty Torlai. And if you could please introduce yourself and your colleagues.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman and House PUTC honorable members. I am Bettina Terlahi, known as Betty, from the acting executive director of the Commonwealth Utilities Corporation. And with me here is Mr. Lilietto on my left, who is the transmission and distribution manager. And the to my right is Adrian, our engineer. So who are both familiar with the net metering program as well. I know that the PUTC has been gunning bills that have been impacting CUC and the community more so in a negative or unfair manner. And this is one, our net metering law or public law is one of the bills that has significantly impacted CUC in that the design of the methodology of the computation for net metering usage did not take into consideration the standby costs of the power plant and or the transmission and distribution maintenance cost as well. There are other factors also such as the offsetting adjustment includes the fuel portion, which the solar panels that generate power for the individual facilities do not use fuel to generate their consumption. I mean their production. And so when we give credits, we're also giving credits based on the fuel rate because it was designed to mirror whatever rate that they were using, which the rates that residentials or commercial or government all have fuel included in their rates. And so the one for one offset is concerning because we are giving away credits that are not accounted for either in the rates. So we have been affording customers up to a certain point net metering installations. We had a moratorium out in 2021 to stop that as recommended by our engineer at the time. So that has helped stop some of the bleeding already with regards to the excess productions. Because the credits that we apply are basically, we're buying credits that first we probably don't need, and second, although they're good energy, very good energy, they don't use fuel to produce, but we didn't use fuel yet. We give credits in fuel using our fuel rate. So we, in general, are in favor of the suspension until we could come up with a design that's fair for the non-renewable, non-solar net metering customers. And yet still give what's due to the net metering customer as well. That's going to take some time to study and put together a rate that's going to be fair for both customers in this regard. So CUC is in favor of the suspension. I just wanted to note that I see that in the draft legislation, it suspends Section F, which includes a couple of government entities. It also suspends the net metering regulation its entirety. And I just wanted to add that I know that there was a new law that was passed for the library, and I wanted to make sure that if that's the case, that the library was part of this legislation, so that we don't have now one entity alone benefiting something that may not have been mirrored here. If this covers it, then that's good. But that's the only thing that I didn't see was there's a new public law, right, for the library? Okay, just want to make sure. Thank you.
So this bill, the bill 2392 that we're proposing, will eliminate all net metering. That's the purpose of this bill. That's why we didn't single it out. So we generalized it as
Okay.
all. There's not one that's going to benefit over another. So it's equally, you know, um, where this bill is trying to create a level playing field for everyone. So this is inclusive, including all government agencies, be they autonomous or semi-autonomous. Because it is not fair for the general public to be picking up the tab for other customers that have the ability and the funds to be able to purchase, the solar and renewable energy systems.
That that'll be good. Thank you. Yeah. I did see that it said it's in entirety, but only because we pointed out the PSS and and the CHCC. But if that second one covers everything else, then that covers our concerns.
I recognize Rep. Manny Castro.
Good morning, Executive Director and team. The question I have for you guys today is there any available or can CUC provide to this committee cost accounting regarding what you just stated earlier? Um, a cost accounting report um, so that we can really see the numbers that you're stating. Thank you.
We will provide. Thank you. At this time, I don't have the accounting of the numbers, and it would take some time to put the report together as the accounts are reconciled, and then there's an adjustment that's due based on the law, and then we have the exact number, but we will get that to you as soon as we can.
I recognize Representative Flores.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Miss Betty and team, for being here. I think my question I'd like to direct to either the two gentlemen with you who would probably know the answer. My question is for CUC is the bill is aimed to suspend net metering. So for those people, and I ask this to break it down, please, in layman's terms, so that the general public who don't understand the language of utilities and engineering can comprehend, because I'm not an engineer and I'm struggling. I'm not struggling as difficult, but I'm having a hard time transitioning from a representative to an engineer and then back again when we're talking about utility matters. So, um, Miss Betty, if you can direct the question for them to answer, I'd appreciate that. So my question is, for those people who already are in agreement with CUC that have purchased this solar equipment back in the day, what is the impact on them if now we suspend? How is this now supposed to either help them or disenfranchise them again, right? So that's the first part. The second part is for those who didn't and are not, that don't have solar through this particular um, um, time when it was available, right? What happens to them? So two prongs. The ones that purchased what is the impact? And then the ones that don't have it now, what is the impact to that? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield.
Thank you, Rep. Flores.
So just quickly introduction, Adrian Rages, engineer with CUC's Renewable Energy Department. So with regard to your question on what does the proposed bill on suspending the net metering program does for existing net metering customers, um, in my interpretation as an engineer, it doesn't do anything really. These existing net metering customers will operate as business as usual, right? So they'll continue to generate, solar power from their solar system, and avail also CUC power. So they get the best of both worlds. Okay. Um, with regard to future net metering customers who are not yet net metering customers, but are considering solar energy, right, to be infused into their homes. Um, this bill, again, because it's a suspension in nature, is somewhat of it's a temporary condition, right, that more or less allows CUC, or rather adds to CUC's ongoing timeline to evaluate its cost of service, right, with regards to the accreditation process to the net metering program, meaning CUC would have to quantify the cost impacts of accrediting existing net metering customers when they export solar energy back into the grid. Okay, and that's just part of due diligence with regard to the utilities. Okay, and then secondly, with regard to this suspension and what it and how it adds to CUC's ongoing timeline to do its due diligence. So as an engineer, grid liability is our number one priority, right? It would not make sense to operate a service without ensuring that it's reliable for all of its customers 24/7. So the with the Solar for All program coming online, in this year, 2024, CEC would have to evaluate, more comprehensively the administrative parameters behind its current net metering program. Okay, and determine whether adding new policies into the net metering program would strengthen the net metering program with regard to service for the customer, and also um, the CUC's ability to sustain roughly 17 megawatts of additional solar power that will be spread across Saipan and Rota that we're expecting to get through the Solar for All program, right? Which is a government state initiative, if you will. Okay, so we have to be proactive in that sense, right? We have to be proactive in understanding what are the parameters that CEC would have to add on to its net metering program so that the infusion of additional 17 megawatts of solar power across Saipan, Tini, and Aurora works well for everyone, whether you have solar or you don't have solar. Solar, in general, is it's a renewable energy resource that can work for everyone. That's what CUC's goal is in all of this. We have to make solar power work for everyone, whether you have solar panels on your roof or you don't, right? So strengthening CUC's net metering program would would um, would would result as this suspension to the net metering program takes place, because it only adds to CUC's timeline to do its due diligence on its cost of service and also evaluating the grid reliability impacts of infusing more solar into the grid as a result of the Solar for All program. Okay. Yes.
Can I ask a follow-up question? So is that good or bad?
it's a good thing. It's a good thing. Like I was stated,
So it's good.
it's a good.
Okay, thank you. I yield.
Any other comments from any member? What? I recognize Vice Speaker Camacho.
Thank you, Chairman. So obviously we've all gotten. I'm sorry. For good morning, first of all, but obviously we've all pretty much gotten several calls from a lot of constituents, and one of the main questions that was asked is that we understand that CUC is currently maxed at 30%. Yeah, and for those existing customers with solar panels, is it possible to basically suspend the new applications? And if so, how long would it take for your team to, I guess, come up with a system that can accept all these future applicants? Yeah, just the time frame basically, and if it's feasible to continue operating currently with the I guess cap that CUC had placed.
So there's a cap, right? There's a moratorium out right now, and we're not accepting any new. Although we accept, we just kind of put them on a pending status. And like and Adrian had alluded to earlier, it is the cost of service study that we need done to be able to determine how to get our net metering customers back up or on continue to accept new customers and perhaps lift the suspension if anything sooner than 4 years. I know that there's a 4-year sunset provision. I hope I answered that enough, but I just wanted to add on a little bit more to clarify that when Adrian was talking from the technical engineer perspective, to be transparent really is that the impact that the customer will feel and they will protest is because when we suspend the net metering, that means there is no more net metering. So that means that they can generate power and use it, but they have to pay for every penny that they use of CUC's power. There's no net, there's no offset. And so if they solely consume electricity based off what they produce, then they're not going to pull CUC's power, right? And that means that they're generating enough to support their household. But once they use 1 kilowatt hour more than what they're producing, then CUC kicks in. And that's where that hidden cost that's not being compensated for in this net metering methodology is that we are on standby to give them power as soon as they don't generate enough production. Now, I don't want to make it complicated to not lose you in the methodology of rate of the billing process, but what we do now is in addition to the fact that they generate power, if they generate 500 kilowatt hours in their solar panels and then they use 500 from CUC, they don't have to pay for that, it just washes. So they're using CUC and they're not paying for it, but they're also generating an equal amount to not pay for it. But as soon as they generate 500, but they use 700 from CUC. If we suspend the law, then they pay for the 700. Right now, they only pay for the 200. That's the net. The net of they produce 5 and they generated 7. So when you offset the 2, they have a net kilowatt hour of 200. So they're getting the 500 free, and then they only have to pay for the 200. That's how this rate was designed on the law. And so now if we suspend the net metering, you basically they can produce whatever, but whatever they consume from CUC, they pay 100% now, and not just the net difference between the two. Okay. So that would be the impact to the customer on the financial side, right? And then for future customers, we do the cost of service study. and we come up with the true rate of what it takes to be on standby for these households that have solar panels or choose to be on net metering or solar for all, whatever the case may be. And the rate study would tell us that, for your large customers, it depends on how we want to go. Do we want to, the bigger users pay more, or the lower users pay less? And that's a very common design because it helps the low income people. Usually lower income will use less, and so they end up on a lower rate. And the people who use the more usually have the means to pay for their power because they have bigger houses and more aircon units, right? So we would get options from our rate experts. They will give us options and talk to us about what's the trend now in the U.S. and what's going on, not just the U.S. but the world, and what's going on and how Saipan looks, how much it costs to generate, and how much the distribution system is costing, which would include all the maintenance and all the materials that we need to upgrade to. And they'll look at where we're also going. How many solar for all panels is the government going to put on the residential? How much are they putting on government? And that's going to impact the rate too. And so then they'll come up with the rate design that says, here's your options. You could do this option, which would account for lifeline rates, which would help lower income, users. Here's a rate where it's fair, equal for everyone, regardless of income level. Here's a rate where these industries use more demand, therefore we tap on a little bit more cost on there. So we'll get the different rates, and then we kind of come together and decide what's the best for CUC, and then that's what the consultant will put together as a final version and present it to the board, and then CPUC has to now dissect those rates. And when CPUC goes through that and dissect their consultant will work with CUC's consultant until they agree that it really is a full cost recovery rate that's designed fairly also for both the people and for CUC. So, thank you.
I recognize Representative Manny Castro.
Thank you, Executive Director, for that clarification. I just wanted to um, re-clarify what you just said. So you're saying, like, let's say a household has solar and is using 500, five, maybe like 1,000, right? 500 is from their solar, and then they're using 500 from CUC. So they don't pay for that 500, it gets credited. My understanding initially was that if you use like let's say it was for just that 200 that example, let's say only what you export out of your house is what you get a credit for. Is that not how it is right now at CUC?
Your Yeah, the way the net meter is designed is it's exporting out and
Yeah.
then it's importing in. So that's why there's a wash. So when you export 5, which is your production, and then you pull in 5, there's the wash of what's equivalent. That's why it's called net meter.
Yeah.
It's the net usage that remains. So it's either you produce more, then you get a net credit. And if you use CUC more, then you get a net charge.
So right now, what you said earlier is, let's say the solar is producing 500 and CUC they're using 700, right? They get a credit for the 500 that they're using from CUC also?
So the simple math is, without looking at uh, that detail, is they used 700, they produced 500, and so production is a credit and consumption is a
Mhm.
debit. So when you add the two together, you'll end up with a debit of 200, right?
Yeah.
So then we charge you only for the 200.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
I recognize Representative Flores.
Thank you, Chair. Okay. I'm sorry. Just for council, before I even get to that, when was this net metering law implemented? 15th legislature. Okay. 15th legislature. Off the top of your head, Miss Betty, do you know the number of how many people since this first law was passed, when this law was passed, how many people have solar or were, I guess, approved under this, wonderful thing that just happened in the 15th legislature? How many people availed of this? Do you know off the top of your head? Converted over, I guess, to
Yeah,
solar
I
during
mean,
that time.
today we have about 535 active
535 active.
customers,
Okay.
but there's probably a little bit more
Okay.
because at some point some fell off and or their
Went straight
solar damaged, whatever it is.
Okay.
But that's 535 facilities.
Okay.
Um, there are commercials in this number.
Okay.
So between commercial and government, we
Uh-huh.
have about, let's say 50 of that is commercial and government,
Okay.
and the rest are residential.
So the rest are residential.
Yes.
Okay. So, so my question is then, now knowing this number, some of them, not a majority of them, are commercial and government facilities. The bulk of this is residential. Okay. I have to understand. Now I get why there's so many people opposing, because you got 400 people, residents, that are struggling already to begin with. And this bill now really doesn't protect them in any way, right? Because now they're going to be paying everything. There's no more net, correct? Unless I'm wrong, that now that there's no more safety net. You have to pay whatever it is that you consume, right? There's no debit anymore.
If it's suspended the way it's written
Correct.
entirety,
Yes.
then I read that as there's no net metering right now. I mean,
Right.
after it's
So, okay. So my question is, oh, you would have to promulgate your rules first in order to come up with a cost of service that works for everybody. Okay. And that might take a year or so, maybe. Hypothetically, it might
Yeah.
take more than a year, maybe a year or
9
more.
months to a year. Yeah.
Okay. So I have a question. Because now we're saying that there are government facilities that availed of this program, what are the implications then? What does this mean to PSS? Because I know some of their schools have these panels, correct? And what does that mean now for the customers with long-term agreements with the third-party solar provider? What happens to the agreement then?
The public law would
Trump
trump
that.
that. Yes.
Okay, so can we get a copy of that agreement? I don't think I've seen it. Between the third party and thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield until I can see that agreement. Thank you.
I recognize Representative Castro.
Yeah, Chairman. So the only concern that I have is from the business aspect of it. For those that have invested in solar, it's a contract, right? So they're banking on that cost savings to get the return on their investment. So in sense where, this law might interfere with that. But I'm looking at section 7, and it says this act and any repealer contained herein shall not be construed as affecting any existing right acquired under contract. So, um, council, what can you clarify that?
Right. Let's go into a short recess. I recognize Representative Castro.
Thank you again, Director, for your insight on that. Is CUC also planning on creating some kind of fee for those that have solar. And like as you said, like power can fluctuate, right? Which is going to damage the grid. It potentially can cause an outage. So is there a plan to have like a special fee for those that are hooking up, so we can possibly also invest in the needed infrastructure to support those fluctuations? Like other places, they have a battery set up for that fluctuation.
And that's why we're trying to do a cost of service study like done. We are in the process of trying to we're getting our RFP out anytime now for that, because a lot of things are changing, and we are preparing also for renewables. So it's critical that that cost of service is done sooner than later, and so this would definitely be addressed in that regard also.
And just as a follow up, I just wanted to thank you guys for coming out and explaining this. I hope that CUC will do more of this in the future. It doesn't have to be here at the legislature, but it definitely needs to be sent out, this kind of information, so that way the people can understand what is fair, what are the challenges the utilities is facing, and be better informed on these type of issues. Thank you.
I would like to recognize Representative Buell.
Thank you, Chair. Just a clarification, Ms. Betty, of the 500 customers, I thought I heard how many kilowatt do they, I guess, approximately produce right now?
So right now we are around 4.8 megawatt
Megawatt
with
for private production,
including the commercial
including commercial.
and the fuel government. There's only 9 government, and with PSS, it will added on. It'll be another 4.2.
So about 8
So
megawatts.
it'll be
roughly.
almost 9. Yeah.
Almost 9. So I guess just for a follow with Manny, Rep Manny Castro, I guess part of the question now is those that are on solar. I guess CUC has to have a standby rate, no? That's not currently. They would have to do a new, I guess, schedule where if I'm on solar and I decided I'm not producing, I go and CUC. Of course, I don't expect to pay 36, whatever the 36 cents or 30 cents per kilowatt hour. I'll pay more because why would I won't expect to be paying the same rate, meaning not using season while everybody is paying for those charges. And for someone that is using solar, if they do decide to go back to CUC, they should be paying a higher rate because technically they can overproduce, and if they use CUC power, then they should pay more. That's a position I have. I think that's something that CUC can look at so that uh, they should include that, so it can also subtract, I guess, from the regular customers, no, that the private or the commercial that um, have it generated now, but then if there's a storm or something, they go back to CUC, they should be paying higher because knowing they're going to go back to the grid or back to solar in the future. So that's something the CUC can also consider to help the ratepayers, that all these customers should be paying a little bit more for standby power. That's just a comment I have. Thank you.
I recognize Representative Flores.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Miss Betty, can you So then, can for me to know and for the general public to know that are not on this solar panel system agreement that you have going on right now currently, which is titled the 2014 Net Metering Interconnection Requirement Standard for residential customers owned renewable energy generating facilities. So right now, as it currently states, when you have this excess, they have this excess credit now. What happens to that credit? Does it stay with the consumer? I mean, where does it go?
At one point, it should be reconciled every 12-month period.
Mm-hmm,
And then the 50%, the fuel portion,
mm-hmm,
50% gets refunded, and the other 50% gets reversed back. Actually, that should be done monthly. And then at the end of the year, the remaining credit, which includes already the adjustment of 50%
mm-hmm,
fuel that gets reversed,
mm-hmm.
is supposed to be paid out to each customer.
So that's not currently happening right
That's
now.
It's not.
How
And
how long has it been since it's
we have not, we
paid out?
have submitted to CPUC last time they were active, um, the reconciliation method that we
Mm-hmm,
proposed to use
mm-hmm,
based on the way the law was written.
mm-hmm,
And they were reviewing it. We had some hearings with their consultants,
mm-hmm,
and we walked them through the process. And
mm-hmm.
it kind of
Died out.
stayed at that point. Yeah. So
Okay.
that doesn't. I mean, I felt that it shouldn't stop us from proceeding forward.
Right.
So we had just started a task force
Okay.
to reconcile these accounts,
Okay.
and now that we have a CPUC, I'm I don't think it requires us to go there,
Mm-hmm,
but because a particular customer had brought it to CPUC because he did not agree with
mm-hmm,
the credit that he was getting or something like that. So, but I think we can proceed going forward, and we've made some commitments to customers that we are currently working on it now, and that
mm-hmm,
they should give us at least 6 months to
mm-hmm,
reconcile all these 500 accounts. And so
mm-hmm.
we have a task force that's currently working on it.
And I think, right now that you have that currently working on, I think the big question is for a lot of the people who are in this, using this mechanism or this form of energy, they want to know what's going to happen to their credit, right? Regardless
Yes.
of whatever it is, either they get paid a dividend at the end of the year or it's applied somewhere. The biggest thing that we're seeing now is these lack of rules and procedures that prohibit certain agencies to perform their due diligence, right? And I think that's the biggest problem we're having is, there's so many laws that lack promulgation of rule so that they can enforce or enhance service quality or performance based on the management, right? There's always this disconnect. And I think that now that you have that moving forward, that gives some ease and some kind of comfort knowing that they're going to get something back. You can't just stop this and then, oh my God, what's going to happen, right? So, in terms of all of this happening now, and you're here, from your perspective, what is your order of importance? Because now you have several bills that are sitting in the Senate. You've got this one now that was just introduced, but you, as a semi-autonomous agency, has to promulgate its rules to satisfy what's expected of you by the public law, right? So, in order of importance, because you are the vendor now, giving out, doing a service for the people and for the government, in order of importance, what does that look like to you and the board?
Well, regardless of any draft or new bills that go
Mhm,
into law, right? The credit is already due to
mhm,
the customer. But what is the amount? Because in some cases, it might not be a credit. It
mhm,
might be where they owe if the credit is very minimal.
mhm,
So that's, for me, that's a priority,
mhm,
and that's why we started a task force, and we
mhm,
actually hired a couple new people
mhm,
to train them, and at that level to focus only on this. Um, and once they get the first five out, it becomes easier after that. So unfortunately, there's no, system where we could buy and put in the numbers and then it just does it for us, because the way the law was written,
Mhm.
it's very specific to
Mhm.
when you do this and when you
Mhm.
do that. And every time we go back to our system programmers, it's 25 grand to customize a system that you're only going to need for a
Mhm.
short period.
Mhm.
So we've trained, we've reconciled a couple
Mhm.
as our uh, training, during our training,
Mhm.
to show how it should be. And as of today, it's been a couple of weeks since they've continued to do that. We are hiring more people, but that is our priority, is
Okay.
to get this reconciled.
Okay.
We need to do that,
Mhm.
regardless. We're not going to wait another 10 years. I think I've been huffing and puffing about this
Right.
for a while, that it needed to be done.
Mhm.
And so I'm glad to see that we've got people in a room just doing this all day.
Okay.
And then the rate study is another critical, very critical, and a priority.
Mhm.
And so we use a different group for that to prepare. The rate study is approved. It's just we're on the last leg of approving the RFP
Mhm.
layout, the
Mhm.
wordings of it. But that should go out hopefully by mid-January, which is the rate case. I mean, we have a little hiccups with funding, but that's not going to stop us from proceeding, nonetheless, because we want to get to a point where we're prepared to put up a solar farm, or other forms of renewable energy, because um, we feel for our customers too. It's not just, we're looking out. We're not just inside and staying inside, and we still get the customers who come every day that cannot afford to pay their bill, and we
Mhm.
still offer them services like a promissory note, or a prepaid meter, if that would help them handle their budget better, or another means. But um, we feel for our customers that still have to pay this high fuel rates, and then the non-fuel is not even capturing what it needs to capture,
Mhm.
so that we could improve our services and become more efficient and more
Mhm.
stable and reliable for the
Mhm.
customer. So there is a lot of priorities right now on our plate,
Mhm.
and I think I'm happy to say that, in the short period that I've been acting,
Mhm.
that everybody who's been singing the same song, are stepping up and doing a little bit more than they would normally do,
Mhm.
so that we could keep moving until we hire people that come in. I mean, we've been putting our positions out in the job market, and it's not very attractive to bring people here from the mainland, because their pay is way better over there, right?
Mhm.
They're in the six digits, but probably in the threes and higher, and here being six digit is already big for the CNMI. So we're still battling that, and hopefully we'll have an executive director too soon. I know
Thank
we
you.
have one. Yeah.
Mhm. Thank you for that. And, I think that's important to have this conversation. And, Mr. Chairman, I'm almost done. It's important to have this conversation. What is comforting for me is to know that we are now in the same room singing the same song. How we get there is obviously, left, right, and not just right, 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 and then left, left, left. Not gonna do anything. But to walk together in in a manner that is going the end result is going to help the general public as a whole and for all is better than having these for some, right? And I think that is the consensus, and it's always been the consensus of the 23rd legislatures, that it has to be for everyone. We cannot afford any more of these, you know what works for Jack only works for Antonio. It has to work for everybody. And I think over the years, it's evident that as you go and go and go, at some point it's going to break. And unfortunately, here we are, right? It had to be all of us now trying to figure out ways to help our people and the businesses for that matter. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ms. Betty and your team. I yield.
Right. Can I go up there and uh, do something? Okay. All right. So I just want to try to clarify this so that the people in the public would truly can get a grasp of this, the significance of why the bill proposes to suspend the net metering. Okay, this is not perpetual. It's not going to be forever until such time that we can get a good cost analysis conducted. Then we can maybe implement it if it needs to be implemented. Right. So let's just do the math. Right. Right now in the CNMI, there are over 40,000 plus population. Right. Out of that 40,000, you're saying that there's only 500 customers right now. Okay. So 40,000 plus and 500. If this 500 are benefiting at the expense of the 40,000, there's nothing socially beneficial about this. The 500 are the ones that's benefiting the most, vice the 40,000. So if this 5,000, like let's say for example, again, let's just make the numbers, easy to understand. If any one of these customers produces 200 kilowatt per hour of energy, correct? We're following, right? And out of this 200, they only consume 100, correct? That means that they have a net of 100, right? Now, when they use this net, okay, they get credit for this, right? When they use this net, this right here does not pay for the transmission, the distribution, and is that correct? Now, since the haves, are not paying for any of this, guess who's paying for this? The 40,000. Where in this math is it socially beneficial when it's only these that are benefiting? That's the whole purpose of this. And the simple fact that, I'm not saying, we're not pointing any fingers here, but because there was not a proper cost of study conducted, you know, it has been chaotic. So we need to, suspend it for now until such time that we get all of our ducks in a row, and then we will revert back and look again and see, do we need to suspend it anymore or implement it? Does this make sense? Right? All right. Now, let me just refer to something. So, the authorities that are really do understand, renewable energy and net, okay, is the Department of Energy, right? The National Renewable Energy Laboratory out of Colorado, right? The Berkeley Institute and the Association of Energy Engineers. They understand all of this. And this is the findings that they have found. If you look up there on the board, okay, this is one of the or on the television. The study is careful to describe these as impacts, as in hurtful, rather than benefit, as they represent resource transfers from some stakeholders to others, rather than net social benefits on the state, national, or global scale. That is the importance of this bill, is to create a level playing field, to ensure that the majority of the population are given the chance to breathe. In the past 10 years alone, the cost of renewable energy, the systems, has dropped dramatically. It is now more affordable than it was 10 years ago. Okay. The people now have, a chance to be able to afford maybe not a big system, but a small system. But the good thing about this system is that there is what they call modular. You can start small and you build on it. Okay. And we're not saying that CUC will no longer be needed. That is a false assumption. You would always need CUC. Okay. If everybody pulls together, if the government gets all their systems up and running and connected, the consumables that CUC has to spend on will be reduced because it's not expending any. If a generator is not running, then it's not consuming fuel. It doesn't require so much maintenance because it doesn't work. It's not working right. I mean, it's not running, operating. But you always need CUC to do the reserve spin. You will always need it. CUC needs to be protected because not everybody can afford to have their system at 100% as of now. But we give it time and it'll work. And therefore, that's the reason why there's a sunset provision in the bill, so that we all can try to see what is the actual impact and what is the actual cost of maintaining the grid on a level playing field. That is the whole purpose of this. And it's not just from the National Renewable Laboratory. Let me get this one again. 1 second. Legislature. Can you please open this up as well? Okay. Right. I sent it on the email. So the last report that we've just seen, that's from the Berkeley laboratory, right? So did I? Okay, wait 1 second. Go down to. Okay, go down to slide number. Where's that? Natural gas. Go to slide 35. All right, and then on the last point. Okay, now here again, this is from NREL, right? It is important to recognize, however, that these savings to electricity consumers come at the expense of electricity generators. RPS means Renewable Portfolio System, right? Induced reduction on wholesale price represents a transfer of wealth from generators to consumers rather than a net social benefit. It's always about that, the net social, everyone, not just a select few. And again, I'm reiterating to the public that we're not trying to kill net metering. We're just suspending it until such time that we could get a real grasp of the actual cost benefit analysis. So we need to ensure that the have nots are given a fair chance. Okay. Now, I want to make this also clear that we in the CNMI, okay, cannot and should stop comparing ourselves to other state in mainland. And the reason for that is because we, unlike them, do not have the population capacity to distribute the cost. We do not have the economic standing to share these costs. We are all we got, and we cannot afford to be subsidizing anyone. We are all in this together. And whether we like it or not, sometimes we just have to stop doing something in order for us to be able to find our way on a clearer path. We do not have the money to be crediting anybody else. We do not have the economics of scale right now to distribute the cost. We are all we got. And we cannot have, you know, Joe on one side living the life while Tan Maria on the other side is suffering. We cannot afford that. And that's the reason why that this legislation is just one of the pieces of the puzzle to try to make things work right. And everything that we're trying to do at PUTC committee as a whole is to try to do things right, but we cannot go from step A and then we're going to skip to step M and then go back to step C and then go to step J. It just doesn't work that way. In order to fix something right, there is a procedure. And when we're talking engineering and economics, there's a step 1, step 2, step 3. So, and I totally understand that those that have are going to be a little bit disadvantaged. But at the end of the day, I'm sorry to say, but I will be honest, as I always am. I would rather take the 40,000 than the 500. Thank you. Anybody else? I recognize Representative Flores.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that. If we don't have any other business to conduct with the team of CUC, can we excuse them and we continue with our committee? I mean, I know Miss Betty needs to be there, maybe working on this cost benefit analysis. So if there is honestly nothing that the committee would like to ask in regard to the new business that's on the agenda, may I request that we break into recess and release them? Or council, do I have to motion first before they? Okay. So recess. May I request for a recess, please?
We'll step into a recess. All right. Right. So, acting director, do you and your team have anything for us? Anything else you want to clarify or?
Thank you for having us share our thoughts and also to we have a better understanding too of where the committee's trying to take this. And at the end of the day, I mean, bottom line is yes, it's other customers are subsidizing the net metering, and when you think about the economics, I hate to say this, but the other customers are the ones who cannot afford also the luxury of having net metering. So it is unfortunate, but thank you, and we'll look forward to the final draft. And if we need to provide further comments, we'll do it at that time.
Thank you. All right, we'll go to a short recess. in recess, and sorry for that long delay. But after an extensive discussion and debate, we have hereby repealed mm, House Bill 2392, and it is now House Bill 2392, House Substitute 1, and that is to repeal the net energy metering in the cinema and for other purposes. Whereas on the the original proposed is to suspend the net energy metering in the cinema and for other purposes. Any comment? So, all in favor in the motion, please say aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. So, do we get a voice vote or?
Just for the record, Chairman, I believe that Representative Probe seconded the motion and Representative Attal made the motion to to substitute your House Bill 2392 so that it's House Bill 2392 HS1 and reflect the changes substantively from suspension to repealer. Thank you.
I recognize Representative Marissa Flores.
Chairman, and just Chairman, for the record, can you also, I'd like to offer a motion for the LAs to go ahead and prepare the committee report. So move.
So, the motion? Right. So, a motion has been it has been made and it has been seconded. So, all those in favor say aye. All those in favor say nay. All opposed? Motion carries. Moving along in the order of business, we have nothing under old business. Without further ado, under new business, we have next item under new business, we have none. Next item on the agenda, we have miscellaneous. Any miscellaneous? Ready? Next item can get a motion for adjournment, and I recognize the Vice Speaker.
Motion to adjourn subject to the call of the chair.
Right. Meeting adjourned. Right. Right. All those in favor say aye. Others say no.